Gervonta Davis winds up with another case pending against him again in South Florida, apparently in a strip club, putting his hands on a woman. She alleges assaulting her, and she wants the civil suit. Right away, there's a lot of people saying, why do these women always go to the civil suit? Why not a criminal suit? And I would just, when this last one happened, I put myself in the shoes of a potential victim. And I thought, I'm going to be blunt. I thought, look, if I already got my ass beat, I want to get some money out of it. And that's just the reality of it, because there's no taking back what happened to me. Other people will rightfully say, you need to pursue a criminal charge to stop someone from doing that to the next potential victim, right? I understand that, and I think that's a very fair point. But if I'm being honest and I'm in those shoes, I want to make some money off of what I've already went through. That's that. But yeah, go ahead, Raheem.
From what I've read, there is a criminal complaint being investigated.
Right.
He hasn't been arrested, he hasn't been charged because the investigation is ongoing. From what I've read, there is even a videotape that exists because it is inside a club where there is video footage that can be acquired by the police with a subpoena. That if that is in fact true, this is probably going to be something that we see on the internet in the coming days. You know, these police tend to not be able to stop leaks of videos and such like that. So we'll see if that happens. But when it comes to whether or not alleged victim files a criminal charge, or I should say, cooperates with an investigation and waits for that criminal element to play out, or creates a civil suit, it really, if we're honest, it has to do with timing. Like, I understand what's happening here. This man has a major fight coming up. He's on a huge platform. There's a lot of press around his name. This is the maximum impact to file that suit for exactly what we see happening now. It's in the news. We're all talking about Gervonta. There's something immediately in front of us that he's involved in. Now that he's not going to be involved in based on this lawsuit, this is maximum impact. This is probably a kind of suit where, and again, I'm completely speculating, but I would imagine that probably the lawyers went to him, again, speculation, and said, you can stop this suit without it coming to the public forum. If you settle for this amount of money, then we won't file and this won't come into the press, and you can probably get this massive bag. That's what I would do if I was strategizing on how to get the money, right? Maybe he told him F off, or maybe that never happened. But I can see the strategy here. And now it's something that is going to be more difficult for him to deal with because he's got to deal with public opinion. This is not something that we're hearing about for the first time in this type of behavior with him. There's a long history of criminality and domestic violence. So this is on brand. And it's a brand that Netflix does not want to be associated with. So if he had an opportunity, and again, I think a good lawyer who's just trying to get the money probably goes to him and his lawyer and says, here's the number. If you want to keep this out of the press, if you don't want us to file this suit officially, settle now, keep it on the hush, and go get way more money than we're asking for in a fight in a couple of weeks. Clearly, whatever did happen, that wasn't agreed to, and here we are.
Well, before we get to the bigger picture, first of all, if this fight is off, I'm bummed for you, Raheem, personally, because you were about to be a part of this broadcast, weren't you?
Yeah, well, the fight is off. The fight is, it hasn't, the statement hasn't come out. I've heard from reliable sources the fight is done. This Gervonta Davis versus Jake Paul is absolutely not happening. And so that is very disappointing for me because I participated in the build-up show. There are other journalists involved. I know that the episode was incredible. I was happy to be participating in it. I, for my own selfish, very selfish reasons, would have liked the fight to go on
Right.
just so I could at least let my episode drop and then cancel the fight a couple days after that. Okay, the fight doesn't even need to go on, if I'm honest. My episode needs to go on, and then the fight can be canceled for good reason. But, that personal selfish motivation aside, it probably is the right call. I don't see how Netflix can be associated this early in the game with a fighter who has this kind of reputation. Even though these are surely just allegations in the most recent forum, it is not something that is not a pattern. It is not also unknown that Gervonta was not promoting the fight. He wasn't doing his part to sell tickets, sell Netflix subscriptions to hype the fight. At the press conferences, he was a flat tire. Since then, he's been absent. From my understanding, there's a lot of uh, build-up show that goes into footage from the fighters and following them around and stuff. I imagine, per usual, he is not cooperating with that. I mean, they've got themselves a lump, a fucking flat tire that they're giving tens of millions of dollars to an MVP to create a spectacle that he is not helping sensationalize. So I would imagine that all parties were probably happy to find a way out the side door that also makes them look good. Jake Paul is making his brand as associating with being a promoter of women in boxing, top level. Huge opportunities for all these women athletes. It's a terrible look to stuff the pockets of a alleged domestic abuser with tens
multiple
of
times.
millions of dollars. Multiple allegations, like, and a guy who's not even helping you sell the fight. And no matter what you say, he called him a clown at the press conference for putting his hands on women, whatever. If you're going to take those same hands that he puts on women and stuff tens of millions of dollars in them, what you say about the guy is pretty irrelevant. You're participating in enriching him to a great degree by putting him in this fight. So I think all parties, like I said, we're happy to find a way out. If this fight was super big right now, everybody was talking about it. Netflix was imagining that this thing might rival Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. If everything was banging on this fight, we probably would still be having this fight, to be
Right,
honest. Like, if the
right.
money was good, if the promotion was hot, if
Hmm.
everything, they'd be making excuses. But they want a way out, and he gave it to him, and he's lost tens of millions of dollars, not because necessarily he is an alleged domestic abuser, but because he's an asshole.
Well, before I get in, when you said all parties are probably happy to be done with this, I'm gonna touch on that in a second. But first, just to be kind of funny, it'd be sweet for you because Raheem is real tight with Dave Chappelle, and when Dave when he had to leave the show season three, Donnell Rawlings and those guys all still got their screen time and just they still got to host and everything. So it's almost like Netflix, can you just run the special you were gonna run so Raheem can get his screen time anyways, like they did for Donnell Rawlings with the canceled season of Chappelle? But just a just a joke there, but not not feeling that, Raheem.
Yeah, there's only two seasons of the Chappelle Show.
You didn't, so you okay? I hit a nerve by bringing up the lost the canceled episodes. Raheem, not as big a fan of seasons one and two. Okay, anyway,
No,
well,
no, only a fan of seasons one. There's only two seasons of Chappelle Show, and then
got
there's
you.
like
I
a
get that.
weird sketch season. Yeah, I don't know what that was.
It did give us the Tupac skit in the club, which was funny,
I
but
wouldn't.
you can't
I only
recall.
watch the Chappelle Show.
Got it. Uh, listen close as life turns its pages. Anyway, going about all parties being happy about it. I'm not sure. And to your point, I do think if this fight was tracking hotter, like Tyson and Paul, I got a feeling Jake Paul might have thought, okay, hey, maybe let's do this. I'm gonna release a video on social media saying I'm here to beat up the woman beater, and part of my check will be donated to the funds against domestic violence. And watch on November 14th as I beat up the woman beater and all this kind of stuff. I was kind of expecting MVP to think about taking that play, right? And this to actually maybe be the promotion, as messed up as that would be, that the shot in the arm this promotion needed. Like, okay, now finally we have these guys in the headlines, like heading into this fight.
Yeah, it'd have been a little too clever by half. It's a bit corny. You can't say on the one hand, "Oh, I'm gonna beat up the woman beater," because it is too self-serving in the sense that we know your real motivation, and also you're paying him tens of millions of dollars in a fight that you're a fucking underdog at best, and it's an exhibition, so it's not even a sanctioned bout. Like, this is all commercial nonsense. If that had been the play, we'd be on here right now talking, calling bullshit, right? I think at
As if
minimum,
that's ever stopped them from doing any
right?
commercial bullshit before.
Right, but okay, we are dealing with the hypothetical, like if this fight was selling, if it was a super hot cultural event, people really were into it. Okay, the motivation is there. So how do they spin it to make the fight go on? I think it's a lot more extreme than that from the Netflix side because they don't need this, right? They don't need this uh, mark on their record this early in promoting these kind of fights. And if the fight's selling, then I think they would require first that Tank make a statement, some kind of like blanket denial, have some kind of something to offer to say that this is in some way in question and we just don't know. And we're going to hold off on anything punitive until the case is settled, which obviously won't happen by the time the fight takes place. And then maybe Jake can make, some fiery statements about whatever woman beating in the past and all of this shit. And even he would have to say, we're going to hold off until any innocent man is proven guilty. This isn't even a criminal charge. We got to move forward. But Tank's just not helping himself, and he's certainly not helping them get there. Like from the announcement of this fight, I have seen nothing from Tank Davis that is helpful in any way to the mission at hand, which is creating a cultural spectacle, selling tickets in the arena, and making people want to flip on Netflix and watch this exhibition, which
Well,
is already a weird matchup.
well,
Like,
I'll touch on in a second why I think not necessarily all parties involved are happy that this fight is put off from what you're basically reporting to us here. Well, when you were seeing Gervonta kind of dead fish those press conferences, what I saw was he's getting a whiff of the pot of shit at the end of this rainbow in this pursuit solely for money. And what's interesting about this Gervonta story in boxing is I think it's a microcosm of much deeper things going on in our culture, in our country. I'm a hip hop head, and yet I've seen the erosion of hip hop and rap over the last 20, 25 years and everything. And Pharoah Monch once said, y'all just want to shine, y'all just want to glisten, floss, knowing that the soul is still missing. And I think that goes beyond rap and hip hop. That we've seen that in so many areas of society in American culture. We see it with the influencers right now, which are replacing the rappers and a little bit the athletes. The athletes have held on to their notoriety and it continues to grow, but the influencers are kind of replacing the pop stars and the rap stars as the new cultural leaders of the youth. And you see them kind of in the same race to just pure subscriber count, views, notoriety, status, essentially money. And I think it turns a lot of their content into shit a little bit, lack of better way of putting it with some more nuance. And I think when you saw Gervonta so disenfranchised, so out of it, and apathetic is the word at all these. It's like, well, yeah, man, you're getting a whiff up close of what you've been pursuing. What this is it. This is the magnum opus of it. You're fighting Jake Paul in a stupid fight for tons of money. This is the culmination of the rhetoric and the perspective you've been sold and that you've bought into since you were a young man. And it stinks, doesn't it? Like this ain't it. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. Now you're here, you got to sell this shit show because you want your money so bad, right? You're not interested in being the best fighter in the world. You're not interested in proving you're the best lightweight in the world. You just want the bag and fuck all else. This is what you play: stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And I think he was getting in part a whiff of the pot of shit at the end of this rainbow. He thought it was, and then also, no, go ahead, Raheem, and then I'll make my other point about how I don't think every party involved is necessarily happy this is off.
I think that's very generous, what you
Uh
said.
huh.
Gervonta is an entitled, spoiled, unprofessional, potential domestic abuser and a convicted criminal. And he had an opportunity again despite all of those true statements, to create a situation for himself to win tens of millions of dollars by showing up on the night and doing even the bare minimum to get people interested in that showing up. He's not the lead promoter. He's not bringing this to Jake Paul. Jake is bringing this to him. He had a fight set up that he absolutely could have proceeded toward and had a different payday in the regular order of boxing, and then was blessed with a much larger payday opportunity. And in that moment, threw aside the traditional boxing that he's been pursuing his whole life, having opportunities to make millions of dollars at, has made him a superstar without fighting the contemporaries in his weight classes that everyone is calling to see these fights that he's clearly not interested in, and still has been the guy that got plucked out to make the super bag because, and still he is the biggest draw of all those contemporaries that people want him to fight. And Jake Paul is seeing him as an opportunity to build to his own payday and create a spectacle. And all Tank had to do was show up and give minimal effort on selling the fight and probably win the fight if he trained for the fight. You couldn't have a lesser bar for a bigger payday. And he was more than willing to throw off the traditional boxing route and a rematch that the boxing world, who's been paying his bills this far and making him that superstar, really wanted. Nobody's calling for Jake Paul and Tank Davis, but he told us all to beat it. I'm going to go get this bag. Fuck what you want. Maybe I'll return to boxing after that. This might be my last fight. That's maybe I'll come back to boxing after that. He doesn't give a fuck about what you or I want. And then he goes over here. This is just desserts. It's not because there's a shit. It's not because of a pot of shit at the end of the rainbow. It's because he shit in the pot.
Yes.
At the end of the rainbow. It's his shit.
Yeah.
It's full of gold. He shit all over it. So much so that he can't even dig down deep enough to get the gold anymore. There is no world in which a person that has had the history that he has had recently would be able to have the opportunity that he has been afforded lately, were it not for some exceptional support from the fandom that he has created. No matter who I'm talking about or what field they're in, you need the kind of support that Tank Davis has from his fans, who in that moment he told to fuck off. I am going to go do this thing that nobody wants to see and nobody really cares about. But the one thing that the entity asked him to do, being MVP, was to make people care about it just because you're in it. Like, you have to now get all those people who want you to fight Roach, who want that rematch, who feel like you got a gift in that fight, even if they believe you would still beat Roach, even if they think even with the knee you should have won it, whatever. There's huge question marks there. It's the fight the boxing world wants to see. The people who've been buying your pay-per-views, buying the tickets, tweeting about you, who support you. The reason that you're the guy that Jake picks is because you have this audience, and you're not giving them anything that they want. And then you're not even telling them why they should want this or why they should let you do this so they can wait for what they want. Like, he's giving nobody anything and getting everything from everybody. That is the crime here. He's the one who has lost out. He is so self-involved that he can't even get out of his own way. Like, who could have made this much money easier coming from a place, coming from a worse place? I think the number of people you can name is very few. And because of who he is, he couldn't even get this bag.
I'm sorry you have to settle for spewing this hotness on this channel instead of Netflix, which has a little bit larger platform than the channel. But we thank you nonetheless, Raheem, for keeping it real. You said support and fans. I'll add another term. Enablers have allowed this to happen, myself included to a degree. Although we did. I was right along with you calling Tank entitled and spoiled earlier in the year. Said it on Sean's too. I've been hounding him for years about fighting Lomachenko and Shakur and Devin Haney and Tio and the like. But that being said, we got a video we're dropping alongside this one that we didn't drop because I'm worried about how I might look, the optics of how I look, being a white guy older than Tank, talking about his repeated domestic stuff. And what's funny in the irony of that is I mentioned in that video, and I'll mention it here again too. A part of why when this started happening with Gervonta a few years ago, I didn't really comment on it is I didn't comment on it when it was Bivol. I didn't comment on it when it was Kovalev. I was too young in my career to have a voice to comment on Floyd. Point being, I'm being consistent, right? If I'm not going to talk about one of yous, then I won't talk about any of yous, right? But it's kind of ironic that I say that, and we said this in the previous video. Kovalev was convicted of doing what he did and still got the Canelo fight anyways. But it's kind of funny that there was a lot of people trying to make this equivalence between Bivol with his wife's allegations and the repeated stuff of Gervonta. Now Bivol's wife, it might be looking at prosecution against her, although I don't know how the laws work over there in Eastern Europe and everything. But I thought that was funny. But enablers from even my man Leonard Ellerby, who I love Leonard, and he watches the show sometimes. And I even hesitate to go. This is the reality of working in this business. Sometimes you learn to like someone like Leonard over the years. You don't agree with him all the time, a lot of the time on this stuff, but you grow to understand his perspective, his part, and compared to yours. But enablers, man, from his fan base to the people around him to even someone like me in media hesitating to tell it just like it is because of bullshit. And not because of access, not because of money, but because you don't want to be misunderstood. Well, whatever. You got to tell the truth and let the chips fall where they may. And when I said, I don't know if everybody's happy that this fight's off, let me ask you this, Raheem. Are you sure do you think Al Heyman's happy that it's off? And I ask you this because of this. Remember Gervonta said a year ago, heading into Frank Martin, he's got a 6-7 fight deal with Al Heyman, right? Well, that was happening when he was fresh off of selling 1 million pay-per-views with Ryan Garcia. And now the Martin and the Roach fights didn't do, I'm not sure if they even did quite a quarter of that. But if they did about a quarter of the business the Ryan Garcia fight did. And now you probably got an exorbitant guarantee. Maybe not. We don't know the paperwork. But let's say you have a huge guarantee tied up in Gervonta Davis. A guarantee that you agreed to after his biggest economic performance against Garcia, right? Well, if MVP's the A-side promoter, that would maybe mean they're on the hook for that guaranteed check. And you see Gervonta, along with Benavidez, is their foundational chess piece that they still have left at PBC after losing Canelo, after the roster's aged and thinned out. Benavidez is fighting in Riyadh next month, or this month now. He's fighting in Riyadh this month. They maybe because of the financial stuff and also the opponents. You can't get any opponents for Benavidez. They all belong to Turkey. And then you can't play big bake, take little bake with Turkey. He's going to win that game. So maybe this is something Al Heyman still wanted to go down, very much so, because now he's not on the hook for the guarantee, and he could take something off the big guarantee by MVP and use it to fund his own operation that he's still trying to keep going on Amazon. What do you think, Raheem?
You are likely correct, as you have clearly looked deep into the business of this particular setup. I have no reason to think that you're not correct. It only supports my theory that yet again, Gervonta Davis is being selfish, immature, entitled, and really fucking over everybody who's invested in him. If that is the case, then how about helping Al out a little bit by selling the fight? How about not creating a situation that gets you dumped from the fight, or at least making it hard for them to dump you from the fight, knowing if this incident did happen, knowing that at any point this can come out of the woodwork. If in fact there was an off-road opportunity for you to take a detour from where we are now by paying this woman off whatever she's asking for, maybe you just owe enough people to be professional, to be the partner in business and promotion that you have signed on to be, and to help everybody involved get over the finish line. This deal, no more anybody more than yourself. Al Heyman ain't going to make more money off this than Tank, or not going to save more money than Tank's making. Jake Paul's going to make his money anyway, with or without Tank. If he's got to reschedule and get a different opponent, Jake's going to be back on Netflix with a massive show, making massive money. Netflix will just shit can this and wait until they can get a promotion where it's worth putting on. Nobody is losing except for Tank big money, but everybody can win if Tank does the bare minimum. And not only is he unwilling to do the bare minimum for the people who are supporting him, giving him opportunities, maybe that he doesn't deserve, getting him out of harm's way with Roach, which he clearly is no interest in getting back in the ring with, giving him tens of millions of dollars for the trouble, and he can't even show up and participate in his own grace that everyone is giving him. And if what the scenario you paint is true about Al Heyman, do you not at least owe that to Al? Get him off the hook for one of these massive checks? I mean, what the fuck is going on, man? I feel embarrassed every time we let a guy get away with what we let him get away with when we show up the last episode. I, like you, am hesitant to go in on guys. Like, I need there to be a conviction. I need there to be some cover because the Uncle Tom calls will be coming out. The fucking, like, oh, the premature, he's not guilty. We don't know, and we don't know. It is a civil suit, and there's not even been a criminal charge. We don't know, but we do see a pattern. We're not stupid, right? We do know that it's highly unlikely that all of these things are just an unfortunate chain of events where he's being victimized by opportunists. Something's going on. You understand? And it is probably something very similar to what's being accused. But we don't know. Okay, fine. So when we discuss situations like this, we have to be very careful. And we get a lot of blowback simply from raising the issue. He's a black man. He's young. He's a success. He's
Not that young
evolving
anymore. He's in
into
his 30s now.
fair enough, right? But we always still see them as, oh, he's a
Right.
kid, or you're hating, or all the stuff that you're a white boy and how, you're racist and you're a black man, you're Uncle Tom, and you just hate on Gervonta and like all the stuff that his fans and enablers and defenders want to attack us about saying when these situations are flat foot in front of our face. And then we are meant to be intimidated because not only does a portion of the fandom blame us for saying anything about the obvious, but then inside the business, you can be punished by making enemies because people don't want this kind of stuff discussed and people don't want somebody to follow suit behind you and make it even more of an issue. So we become the problem because we're talking about the problem for real and not apologists, not enablers. Finally get to a point where we can say, you know what, this has to be said. Should have done it a long time ago. We shouldn't have any hesitation about it. Be fair. Say allegedly. Be fair. Let's look at whatever evidence is presented. Give the person an opportunity to defend themselves, either in the public or in court or both. But we cannot muzzle ourselves constantly and think that we're being fair to the audience or even the profession. So yeah, we both are guilty of that, and for the reasons I've stated, and I'm not proud of that. And so when I get to this place, that's why it comes out the way it does, because it's like enough. We're not jumping the gun. We're not hating. We're not trying to
No, it's
create
the
something out
opposite.
of
We're
nothing.
late.
We're late. We waited for everything.
Right. Yeah, I'm right next to you. I'm the cuck, mop-haired SJW, pussy. So makes you feel better. They'll be calling me shit right next to you. Makes it a good show. Jake Paul, though, it's not like he's the good guy. I mean, he.
I mean, in this scenario,
Yeah, no, yes. Comparatively speaking, in this scenario, yeah, but he had a history before this, and he's still 5'5" and weighs 50, 60 pounds less than you, and you're still coming off fighting a shot Chavez Jr. who already lost to Silva, who you already beat, and then he's deported a couple weeks later, and that was following the fight with the 60-year-old Mike Tyson, who almost died like a couple months before he could make it to the payday. So yeah, this really that beneath Jake Paul? That, like you said, if this fight was selling well, he would still be fighting Gervonta Davis probably. So I just think that needs to be pointed out amongst all this. Who do you think he's going to wind up fighting? I have a spoiler. It won't be somebody his size and in their prime with a pulse.
I like the rumors of Ngannou. I'd be up for that one. That's a good one. I wouldn't mind
I
that.
like that. It's not going to happen, I think, because he
No.
has enough of a pulse and he's not 58 years old.
Who do you think? I mean, that's what I was hearing, and I was like, that because one thing I do think is he's gonna have to come with something really strong after this.
Name wise, marketability wise, not
Yeah.
necessarily competition wise.
Well, I'm hoping that we're running out of guys who are not competitive
Right,
that can also make check those other boxes.
right.
So
I
what do you
mean,
think?
Oscar was like, nope to Ryan Garcia, which we're going to get into in a minute. Because
Yeah.
I don't think Oscar is leaks to the media or whoever did Ryan Barrios without Tank getting caught up in this. I think that was a domino effect, and now Oscar had to kind of scramble. Not maybe maybe it's not fair to say scramble because indeed they were probably talking about this fight with PBC for some duration of time. I just don't think you get that announcement about Garcia and Barrios without this domino falling. We're gonna get into that in another separate video, but I don't know. Ryan would have fit the bill well for sure.
That I like Ryan better than Tank.
Right.
That would be a way more interesting fight. And on short notice. I like it on short notice. Like make him go right now. Like, oh, are you kidding me? If that had actually been the replacement, I would be through the roof.
It might be a bigger fight.
I'd be at the airport early to get to Miami, and I think they just create another build-up show that I would have been in. So yeah, that would be tremendous. I'd love that to be the opponent.